Perfect. Okay, so we're live. It's 3 o'clock and it's, gosh, what day of the week is it? It's Wednesday. Um, and hey, Fiona. And we have Mandy Rennehan that's going to be joining me shortly. I'm excited to have her on because talk about a leader in this country and I would say beyond. She's pretty special and pretty amazing. I received a phone call from Mandy, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and she was really upset about what was happening with, just and looking at truck drivers in particularly, and taking into account that as they're driving cross country to deliver our goods to us, they are basically being their rights and their dignity is almost being stripped of them because they can't even go to public washrooms on their journey from going from one side of the country to the other. And so Mandy called me up and she's like, okay, I need to do something about this. And this incredible human, because her office and her building is located right on the QEW, she decided that she was going to create 4 public executive washrooms just for truck drivers. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing. But that's the type of human that she is. So I'm super, super stoked to have her on and chat with her today at 3 o'clock. I don't think she has piped in yet. Let me see. Nope, not yet. So she should be on shortly. But there's Lauren. Hi, Lauren. So she should be on soon. But it's pretty incredible. I get photos from her the odd time that actually Lauren will take, where she's actually the one cleaning the washrooms. She's doing her part and then some, and it's so impressive and so inspiring. I even offered to help. I will come maybe even this weekend to help clean the washrooms. But I feel like, when we say we're in this together, we can say it, but then there's people like Mandy who are actually demonstrating it. And I think that is what makes the biggest difference. So hopefully Mandy will be joining soon. And we can chat with her about all things also being the blue collar CEO and what that actually means, and what that means to her. So here we go. I can't wait to get a little bit of her energy today. I'm feeling a little low energy. So there we go. I was just saying,
Hi.
I'm feeling a bit low energy today. I'm like, I need a Mandy fix.
You need a virtual bear hug.
Yeah, so I was pretty excited. Okay, well, actually, on that note, because you just said bear hug, so you're known as kind of like the Care Bear, and you're like the person that does like those bear hugs. Where did all of that come from?
It was funny. Somebody asked me the other day when I started my company back in, Halifax, outside of Halifax, which is really sad because Enfield, where a lot of the tragedy just happened, is where I lived when I was 18,
Oh,
and
wow.
I used to drive to Halifax and kind of started my business there. So it was about 45 minutes away. And at that time, I only had one employee, and Marvin was his name, and great guy.
Mhm.
And his wife had had a bad accident and and they'd always called me Bear, from a very young age. But, basically one day, he says, Mandy, I don't know if I can work anymore because, my wife has broke her leg and I have to build this handicap ramp for her. I don't have the money, this and that. So I was like maybe 20, maybe at the time. And
Yeah.
so I went and grabbed a couple of my girlfriends that I played hockey with, and we went over, and I basically said to him, finish this one job out for me on the weekend and then do whatever you want. Well, little did he know that his wife and I and everybody was in cahoots, and we built this ramp for his wife outside of his small mobile home. And when I got back into my truck the next week, there was a big sticker on my dashboard that said Care Bear. And that was
Oh,
back when I was 20. And so it just stuck. And I'm finding now that people are, all of my people in the States call me Care Bear. And it's just gone from Bear to Care Bear and, all that other
well,
good stuff. So,
it's who you are. Before you joined, I was talking about how the whole truck driver washroom initiative came about, that you created, that you developed, and it really comes from a place. It comes from a place of caring for others, and truly demonstrating kindness and what we should be doing. If we say that we're in this together, then we have to demonstrate that we're in this together. And so maybe
You know
talk a little
what?
bit about what inspired that initiative.
Yeah, I think I've often had a saying, and I know because this isn't cable TV, that I'm just going to say it like it is that, you know what, shit stirred stinks. It really does. And, the people
Yeah.
that are really in this for the right reasons really show up, as you would say. They really
Yeah.
do. And I think often, a lot of times we've talked about it, is that I wake up like this every day. I don't know any other way to be. And so for me, it was an easy, really fix to say, when these things are happening, this is not a time for us to feel sorry for ourselves and lick our wounds. We've got to pull in everything we've got to help all the other people out there that maybe aren't as strong as we are. Very similar to what happened in Nova Scotia. My message has been, we can't let one mentally, vilely disturbed human being ruin what we are and who we are, because they'll win. And so it's very similar to my fight with the blue collar industry, for the blue collar industry, which is, somebody said to me one day, well, they said, Mandy, it's just a truck driver. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, when was the last time you tried to back a 53-foot trailer into a hole the size of a Toyota Camry? Yeah. And so, so they
Yeah.
just they stop
Well,
and they, right?
Well, it's also that truck driver that is delivering your toilet paper and your groceries and like everything that you absolutely need. You said this to me like, over a year ago, and you're like, think about the trade industry and what we wouldn't have if it wasn't for the trade industry. So we wouldn't have our home, we wouldn't have the clothes that we're wearing, the sidewalks that we're walking on, the office that we go into every day. We take that for granted.
Totally.
And you really opened my eyes to that. And it's interesting because this isn't your day job. Like your day job, you run like a very successful company called Freshco.
Not, not the
Not
grocery
the
store.
grocery stores, by the way. I always feel I have to preface that.
Yeah.
But you have this passion for making sure that people understand, the world really understands that the importance of being a trade worker for them, but also for the rest of us to really honor that.
I think it's kind of sad that it took a pandemic for us to really realize that this industry is so essential to our life in general, not just with what we're doing now. And it's amazing stereotype. It's narrative. It's everything. I often say I'm a pilot project in an industry that went really right. And the reality is that I'm not trying to push the females in the trade industry from 4 to 40 because I have nothing else to do. I'm doing it because women bring a skill set and a quality to the industry it's never known. I mean, imagine this. I mean, I know people don't know that I nicknamed you Spade, but imagine this, Spade. Imagine that you go to have your house renovated and you call 3 contractors and they actually call you back, but that one of them, not even 2, one of them shows up and it's a female with her iPad ready to walk through your house and give you a quote. Imagine the feeling of there being more females in this industry to really support the consumer. And I think that's really what I've tried to say. And you got to realize, you know me, I'm not, I don't specify, I don't go one way or another. And I really love my guys like I love the girls. I really do. I've never been anyone down. I look and I say, even the guys in the industry, the more women I bring in, they're like, Mindy, keep bringing them in. Oh my God, they're amazing. Because they love what they bring to the table too. And it's like I say to everybody that's out there, why are we trying to teach women how to defend themselves on a job site with 500 men? Why are we not teaching the men how to come to task with the fact that there's 500 of them and one of the women, one female? And I think that's one of the things that we're really missing, is the common sense behind
Yeah.
process. You know, we
Yeah.
complicate everything. And so this is where I bring in my very East Coast charismatic way and just say, why do we have to freaking complicate this? It's not complicated. You know, this doesn't need to be complicated. So yeah, we were actually at my TED Talk when you saw what I spoke about with the blue collar industry and explaining to
Yeah.
people really what our lives would be like without them. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in the middle of San Francisco, California, in the dead of heat, in the middle of a big boardroom meeting, and I hear people screaming, saying, can somebody call the HVAC company? It's so hot in here. It's been broken for 3 days. And they're calling them down to the lowest, but they're also calling them because they need them. And so the idea is that I look at it and I said to the person, I said, what did the person from the HVAC company say? Well, they said that because we waited too long, you know, the part that we need for our system is going to take 5 days to get here. So I look at them and I'm like, okay, so why are we getting mad at that person for you waiting too long to order a part and you're hot? They just stare at me
That's true.
every time because there's just this whole thing of this hierarchy behind they're just an HVAC company and I'm holier than thou in my little boardroom and I should feel like a princess or a prince. And I think that that's the idea, is that there's a narrative here that really needs to change. And listen, you know me, I don't care if I'm cleaning washrooms, if I'm out on the side of the highway, it doesn't matter. I am going to keep advocating for this until human beings realize that this is the reason why we have a systemic
Yeah.
trade shortage, is because how the trade industry and the blue collar industry as a whole are looked at in society. But when we need them, holy love a Hannah, look out. You know what? We do anything for them when we need them. And
It's
that's
true.
what I want to do, is to change. Don't be nice to them through a pandemic. Respect them every day, because even without a pandemic, without them,
It's true.
you're nothing. You will not survive without the trade and collar industry. Sanitation. Listen, I've lived in Oakville for most of my adult life in my company. I just couldn't handle the hustle and bustle of Toronto. My office is here. How many people have come to me, Spade, and said, Mandy, do you have a good house cleaner? And I was like, do you mean, do I have a good partner that makes my life better? Yeah, I do. And they say, yeah, well, I can't find anybody. And I'm like, well, how do you treat them? How do you pay them? Do you
That's
treat them
true.
like you're your partner, or, you know, that makes your life amazing? I mean, we all know when you come home from a crazy mental day in the madness we call the corporate world, traffic,
Yeah.
everything, is there anything that feels better than a clean, organized, sanitized house? Dog dog
Nope.
hair free or kid free? Nothing. But we still ones to go
Nope.
after their invoice or to, you know, to basically much service. Is how do we have people now want to become professionals in sanitation and cleaning if they're being paid minimum wage and they're being treated like second class citizens? I've
So
never seen
true.
you
Like,
upside down.
sorry, you know what? I had to
Yeah.
plug my phone in because it was about to die. So it's just like, will it actually flip the phone if I do that? But it didn't.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
okay, that's not going to work. Um, I look the same
Yeah, you do.
upside down. No, you're absolutely right. Like
Yeah.
it is a change of, we have to evolve the perception when it comes to the trade industry. And it just feels like, I mean, have you seen any movement? Like it feels like it will take a long time for people to think differently. And I think even with the pandemic, we have short memories, right? Like I think it has to be a change in the way we live and behave. And I think that's a long haul. I don't know if that's that's
Well,
the change that will happen
this
anytime
is
soon.
a social change at the
Yeah,
highest level,
yeah.
and the reality is that I think that I've always said I believe that people don't use the leverage that really they have.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I look at, people that have even bigger platforms than me, I'm like, why are you not using it? Why are you not using it? And let's be very honest, Spade. In times like these, you see the people out there that truly their intent is pure. And
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, I know you're seeing it too. Like, I'm
Yeah,
really
we talked
seeing a
about it.
lot of selfishness.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of self-interest, and I'm just sitting back smiling going, it's very much like I said about the truckers. Karma is a crazy thing. They're not just, trucking professionals, couriers, everybody. They're consumers. And the reality is that they're going to remember the person that shut the door on them because they didn't want the liability or the risk. We're very much an obsessed, an obsessed day and age that we really are all about convenience. And the reality is that humanity isn't always about convenience. It's about love, and it's about really us doing the right thing, even though it hurts and it's tiresome. And that's really one of the things that you're seeing right now is that people are very quick to criticize,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the one. Like, I seen an article come over to me this morning that I was beside myself about. And I see that there are people really trying to really wind people up in this, when they're in this heavy state, and they're sending out articles that are making people question, scenarios that they thought that they understood. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why are you doing that?
What
That
was
is
it?
just, so it was really an article that came, it was off of LinkedIn, and it was a friend of mine sent it to me, actually, from the States. And it was about someone that worked for a massive organization who worked in human resources, that basically came back and said, hey, all you business owners, you're gonna really dislike the day that had to lay off people. And this is a two-way street. And it's this. And I mean, it went on to say, how dare you not hold on to your staff? And how dare you this and that? And I will not say the name. People can go look
Yeah.
it up. But I
Yeah.
looked and I was like, I'm a sole shareholder of a company I built, probably very similar to you.
Yeah.
And
The same,
I've
exactly the same.
poured my life, my love, my money into a company. And how dare you go out there and give a one-sided myopic
Mm-hmm.
view of
Mm-hmm.
what my life or other small business, medium-sized businesses' lives are right now,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that nobody wanted to let anybody go.
That's right.
Nobody wanted to see people do this. How dare you just create more of a shitstorm inside of the storm that we're already going through right now? Because I think that that's what's missing, Spade, more than anything, is that people are not taking the time to look at both sides,
Yeah.
and it's hurting everybody. And there's an empathy that, no different than how I feel for all of my staff and my customers and everywhere. We have to realize that we've all been hit with this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect ring of human health and economic fire. It really is. We're all getting hurt. We're all getting burned.
It's true. Well, that's I started this chat saying like we are all in this together. You hear people say it, and then there are others like you who are demonstrating it. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, like even when I don't know, I'm sure you've seen all the protests that are happening in the United
Oh,
States where people are like, "This is it's my right to be able to shop and go to work
yeah.
and go outside." And there's hundreds of people protesting, and you're just like, "Well, if we're all in this together, like." I don't want to get this thing. There's like 500 of you protesting. Like, we have to think about like the human race and humankind and like the entire sort of like people other than ourselves, truly. And do have to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Like, I was speaking to Janet Zuccarini yesterday, who owns Gusto, the
Yeah, I know
restaurant,
Janet
and like
well.
Felix. Yeah,
Yeah.
Janet's amazing.
Yeah, she's
She had to lay
amazing.
off 700 people. She
Yeah,
didn't want to do that. She
of
didn't ask
course.
for this. Her business was thriving.
Yeah.
It's just if she was going to have a business to come back to,
she had to do that because there was no income coming in. And I think that's the problem. Like, if you just look at your perspective, that's a very small perspective.
It
You have
is.
to really look at the entire pie, not just your portion of it.
And I think that there's a way to ask questions
Yeah.
without being aggressive. And I think that, you know, like Janet, like companies like mine, like yours, you know, we're change makers. We're out there in our individual industries wanting to bring in as many people as we can to
Yeah.
train to be the best they can be. And I think that there is a very myopic way that people are looking at employee, employee, employee. Well, the reality is that there's another side to that. It's not just the employee. It's small and medium businesses that have really put their home, any bit of savings, everything. I mean, you and I both know that with the banks,
Totally.
yeah, good luck to you trying to get a loan that's not that's not backed by everything but, you know, the socks that I have on my feet. And let's be
Yeah.
very clear. That still goes for right now is that we're all out begging the banks to you know to for access to cash so that we're able to actually even weather the next 6 months. And I think that that's the one thing too that I often try to get people to see is that you have to look at every angle and say, if we're in this together, it means that you've got to know that that means that I'm working for free and you might have to do a little bit more
Yeah.
to help me get there. It's
Totally.
not a right. And I think that that's something that's really missing today, realizing that the banks right now are doing what they think is best. But at the end of the day, we both know that if you were not in a great place to begin with when this started, chances
Totally.
are you're not going to make it.
Totally.
And it's frightening. And so this is where I put out the fact that if companies like mine and Janet's and yours and all these other small to medium sized businesses are able to survive this, then we're able to bring a lot of those people on and get them back on their feet and, you know, and get them back in the game. And that's what being together in this means. It's not about who owns what. It's
Totally.
about who's willing to sit at the table with everybody else.
Totally. And you do remember the people with a good attitude. Like, I know one of the things I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at all the industries that are being hit the most. So retail and you know, restaurants, the hospitality industry. And so really looking at what can we do? How can we use our resources and who we are to be able to support those industries in the best way possible that actually matters to them. Not that matters to me, but that matters
Yeah.
to them. And what does that look like? And I'm having some of those conversations. And I think it's really, it's been kind of eye-opening and interesting because you can really see the people that are focused on their own sort of business and the
Yep.
ones that are focused on the industry as a whole. And those are the ones that I actually want to support because
Yep.
it can't just be about like, well, this is what I need for my business. It has to be, this is what needs to happen in order for our industry to survive and then to thrive.
Well, you know, interesting enough, and I hope everybody, you know, listening knows that creativity is what's going to save us. Creativity and agility to understand really what's going on. Like, for instance, you know, I was talking to my team and I said, look at the money that we spend over here on things that we don't necessarily need right now.
Mm-hmm.
So even here where I am in Oakville, there's a wonderful entrepreneur that has like 6 or 7 wicked restaurants in the Bronte area. He's like Janet, he's been shut down. He's had to lay off all his people. And I'm like, what if we once a month go down to one of his restaurants and literally have a full training comprehensive day down in his restaurants? And, you know, we have beautiful food. It's cultural.
Love that.
We do it. So I look and I go, how can my business support other businesses instead of me supporting more commercial real estate?
Totally.
Right? How are we able to look and say, and then all my people are going to be wicked. You know what? I love Italian food. You know, I don't want chicken wings or a burger anymore. You know, and so it's interesting. And so then we're able to hop around to his restaurants for 3 or 4 months and really, you know, he's giving us the best of him and we're giving him the best of us. And I think that that's the type of creativity and agility that we really need to look for and know that when we say we're in this together, holy shit, that's got to be exactly what that means.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that was the conversation that I had with a restaurateur yesterday. And he said, maybe the idea is like strategic partnerships and looking at marrying different types of companies or industries together so that they can mutually benefit each other.
Yeah.
And that way, it is that notion of like really showing up for one another. And I thought that's really, that could be something that you could also scale on a larger,
Oh,
on a
sure.
much larger
Well, because I
level.
think
Exactly what you're saying.
it's like we said, look at the real estate that we've
Mm-hmm.
all, because it was always about more office space, more office space, more office
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to my strategic people and I'm saying, so all of our people have been able to work from home. They're probably not set up to work from home beautifully. So what if
Mm-hmm.
we were able to make them set up at home beautifully? But we
Mm-hmm.
also, instead of our office being an office, it was actually a place that's meant for training, meetings, get-togethers. Like it becomes more of the social cultural event of the
Mm-hmm.
company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then
Yeah,
all of
totally.
us, right? And so I think that this is where for me, it's opened up my eyes to what do people want? Well, they want one life. I mean, listen, years ago, they introduced a couple phones, you had a personal phone and a business phone. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I still don't call the right person ever. I mean, I really don't know what phone I'm calling. And they're like, well, Mandy, you called my personal phone. And I'm like, I don't even know what phone anybody has anymore. But the point is that how can we really look at this and say, instead of it being, everything became very complicated. Everything, and I think that that's the idea is let's get back to basics and
Yeah,
let's all of us rent this much space and then really help all the other business owners out there
totally.
really truly like, and I say the restaurants, because who the hell doesn't like to talk and eat at the same time? And then when we're done doing that, we
Totally.
drink.
It's so true.
You
Like,
right?
I think that commercial real estate will look different after this. Because I think what people
Yeah.
are realizing is, oh, we can do this from home. I mean, there's an adjustment, and to your point, like there are learnings that have come out of like the Zooms and the Zoom meetings and all of
Yep.
that. But one of the biggest learnings, I think, because you and I've talked about this for both of us, is you're so much closer to your business and you're very, very clear
Oh
on
yeah.
what's working and what isn't working, and how can you be, sort of as efficient as you possibly can. And Zoom helps. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like,
And it's not enough. I think I want to be clear on when I as a whole look at what a group gathering and something that's impactful looks like.
mm-hmm,
Everybody, it's kind of like the coffee shop scenario. A lot of
mm-hmm,
times when you're in Starbucks, you don't have any idea who the people are around you, but it's that feeling of energy. And I
mm-hmm,
think that that's the balance that everybody's been talking about for years, is the fact that the balance of being able to be with your pet more during the day,
mm-hmm,
the reality of being able to see your child off on the
mm-hmm,
bus, being able
mm-hmm,
to be there when they come back, being organized in your home better. But then
mm-hmm,
when we look and say, listen, every Friday for 2 weeks, this is going to be our meeting, drinking, draining, dartboard, ping pong, everything day. So instead of it being just about a Christmas party,
mm-hmm,
we basically have a social work meeting every week or two that gives somebody something to look forward to and that energy behind business. And when
mm-hmm,
you look at what they're going to save in wear and tear on their vehicles, gas,
mm-hmm.
I mean, all of it, that's
I
the
love that.
balance I believe that we're really looking for. And I think
Totally.
that that's what they're looking for. And it's for us to
Uh,
set them up at home in this little nook of 2 screens, of a chair that's $500 that I've already spent for an office space that I might as
mm-hmm,
well give to them.
mm-hmm.
The desks that go up and down.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing from my people. They're like, there, I get up and I run in the morning, and then I watch my phone, and then I'm able. So they've become more organized in themselves, and I think that commercial real estate is going to take an initial hit, but I also think that they're going to have to get more creative
Yeah, I
with
agree.
spaces, because you look and you say things have just changed very quickly for all of us, and
Mm-hmm.
how can I pay for all of these units going forward when I know that somebody who has put their life into their business, and good businesses down the street, is suffering? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's so true. I actually think that our people are working harder and are more effective, they're just doing it
Yeah.
on their own time. Like we had a conversation the other day where someone's working more in the evening because that's just their rhythm.
Yep.
Well, if deadlines are being met, I don't care. Like
Who
it's
cares?
like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like if you want to work out for the first 2 hours of the morning and you want to
Hey,
work like
a
into the evening,
performance-driven culture works
totally.
for anybody whose intent is pure.
Yeah, I
Period. The end.
totally agree with that. I think what might change, and you and I have talked about um, the interiors of homes and what that will look like. I think that will change because I do think more and more people will work from home.
Yep.
So, and different people have different styles of how they work. Like I work on at my kitchen counter. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
close to, like, I guess, food. That must be, food and coffee. Like,
You mean treats? That's what you
treats.
mean.
Yeah,
Treats.
not real
Yeah.
food. That's true.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Treats. So, but everyone has their own sort of working style. Sometimes when we do
Yeah.
Zoom, like someone's like in an office and it's sterile and it's white and like they need that quiet. So I think the interiors of home spaces will change, don't you?
Well, I think that the beautiful part of the conversation we're having is that I know who the people are that I can text at 6 o'clock in the morning because I'm an early bird.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
people know that when I get up in the morning, I know I have like 20 texts
Mm-hmm.
because I went to bed at 9:45, right? And so, right. So there is a circadian, like a rhythm that people follow that is their peak. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where, even me, for years I've wanted to, and we're going to do it. I've looked and I was like, everybody wants something to look forward to. It's something that I've stood behind my whole life, whether it's a 6-pack of beer or whether it's going to, the fair on the weekend. And I believe that the weekend is always, how many songs have come out about the weekend, Spade, really?
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that when you look at a long weekend, and I can only use Ontario as an example, I mean, we split like a Red Sea that's never, ever been documented because people want that feeling of
Mm-hmm.
freedom. They want
Mm-hmm.
that feeling. And I looked and I said, imagine if I could give all my people a 4-day work week, and that we work together with technology, which is what we're working on, to be able to always give them a long weekend. And so this is really what's prompted me to be even more creative than what I already was, because I think that at the end of the day, companies like ours are looking to build a culture of loyalty. I completely
Mm-hmm.
disagree when you hear that people want, a lot of these millennials want to leave, that we're in this gig economy and they don't. I completely disagree. Every
Mm-hmm.
millennial I've had wants a purpose. They want to work
Mm-hmm.
with somebody that means something to what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Mm-hmm.
They want security like you and I do. Like,
Yep.
that's just bullshit.
I agree.
The millennials get a lot of flack, and even what's the one before them? The Gen Zs or the
Gen Z. Gen
Gen
Z.
Z.
Yeah.
I think that that's the idea. And people like you and I are looking and saying, hey, you should travel for a month, because if you do, and you still have a job to come back to, you're going to be more well-rounded. You're going to be more colorful, and you're going to respect even more what we do, instead of people just leaving,
Yeah.
dropping everything and going to find themselves. For me, it's our job to encourage them. Please don't do that. Just book off a trip and come back.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that you and I have talked, that ties back
Yeah.
into mental health. It
Yeah.
really does, right? Because confidence happens in stages. And I think that's another thing that people need to know through things like this. You don't need to be completely confident in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. It's going to happen in stages. And we really need to know that, no different than the kids that you see on Instagram that are painting cupboards with paint that they found in the garage when their
Yeah.
parents weren't looking.
Mm-hmm.
That's very similar to people coming in your company. They're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just, that's how you learn, and that's how confidence happens.
Totally. Confidence doesn't happen from like everything being perfect. It actually happens when you do make mistakes, because then you become more confident because you're like, okay, I tried that. It didn't work, or it was a learning. And then you're able to actually, like, when you think about like, how did you become you? You became you by going on a journey of, doing some good, like some making some mistakes, and then you become better for it.
Listen, Spade, I've had my teeth kicked in so many times and they've grown back straighter and whiter every time. You know, that's what I tell people. I'm like, listen, we want to work with somebody, you want to be laying next to somebody that has more scars.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that those scars are scars of resilience. It's what makes us better. It's what builds character. You know, I often tell people, I'm like, listen, you know, he might look better on that cover, but there's nothing to him. Nothing's happened to him to be able to, you know, to offer. I'm like, you know what, go for the guy over here that's looked after his mom his whole life and that's worked his whole life. And that, you know, I said, these are the types of things that I love teaching millennials. And that is that these are the things that really shape who you are, and even who you are. I mean, to go through a pandemic. I mean, my mom's going to be 74. Mm-hmm. And she was just blown away by this. This has never even happened in her lifetime.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true. It's so true. I think to what the point that you were making before about making mistakes, it's also about being honest about them.
Yeah.
There's nothing honorable in brushing them under the rug. I think I think we have to do our part and be honest about them so that we can share that wisdom with others. And I think that whole notion of sharing is really important, because even though we have something like, you know, Instagram and all these social media these platforms where you think you're sharing, but you're sharing the best versions of, you know, people are sharing the best of themselves. The reality is if we really want to learn, we have to be honest and truthful.
Come on. Right? Like, I mean, you know, it is what it is, right?
Your gray, though, somehow grows in like very, like, it's like
it does.
The perfect color, and it's like it goes into the perfect spot.
Well, it's, you know, I mean, how many people even at TIFF said, hey, who does your hair? And I'm like, I don't understand the question. And they're like, who does the little, you know, the little swipe? And I said, you know, other than all the people that I'm grateful for in my life, it was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, is that my gray grew in on that swoop. But
that's so funny.
You know, I really, truly believe that segregation is not what we're after in any capacity. And I think that being able to give employees, you know, really the autonomy to be honest, but be honest. And I've always said, you know, my saying is respectfully uncensored.
Yeah.
You know, like I caught one of mine the other day, like just coming after me like a crazy person. And I said, you got to stop, because I know what you're trying to say, but you're kind of pissing me off with the way that you're projecting. I said, go back and rethink about and I said, and know that what you're saying is okay. And I think that that's another thing we can teach people, is that how you project, it's not about what you have to say, it's how, and that's what I find on social media, is everybody's projecting, you know, really everything is a beautiful champagne breakfast. And it's not. You know, it's just not. And I think that people taking the time to really, you know, look at what they're asking and what they're saying, and know that how you project is a complete instant, you know, visibility into who you are. I mean, listen, Spade, I get away with more than anybody, but it's because I'm authentic and I'm real. And I would never say anything to hurt anybody's feelings. But sometimes I just get tired of us talking in circles, and one of us has just got to say it. You know,
it's so true.
Right?
But the word respect, I think, is super, super important, because sometimes people have no filter to the point where they're like, well, I'm just saying what I think, I'm being authentic. But the reality is
no,
you still have to consider what you're saying and how you're saying it is going to be received. And the reality is then that's where respect comes in. And you have to have enough respect for yourself, enough respect for the person that's in front of you, in order to be able to make sure that you're delivering that information in a way that it will be received with the intent that with the same intent and purpose that you're trying to deliver it with.
I think that message is really what's going to hit home with a lot of people, because I think that that's the one thing missing. There's a big break between saying what you want to say and bringing up something that you feel is important, and but that's a fear. They almost come out with it in a way where it's like, do you know how this is going to be received? Instead of looking and saying, how did you used to get the keys from your father at 6 o'clock on a Friday night? Right? You know, it's almost like, how do you did it because you knew how to get to his heart. And I think that your coworkers and your bosses are no different. There's a sense of persuasion. You still there? Okay.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
froze a
I
little for
lost
a
you.
second.
Yeah. But I think that that's really the idea here, is that understanding how you project. Remember, I always told you that I did this big keynote in front of a big consulting firm here in Toronto. And I said, listen, I just sat here for 3 hours and you just all showed me how smart you are, but are you likable?
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
And the place went quiet. And then
Yeah.
I said, do you know what's going to happen after that? You're all going to wonder if you are likable. And the person that you do ask if you're likable are going to wonder if they're likable. Because it's something that we never, a lot of times, we never really look and say, we're smart, but if we taken our likability and made it into a cube, into a ball that's tangible. And I think that that's the other thing is the relatability of your personality and what you are. And that's right.
Yeah, we often don't consider that. Like, how are we being received? Like, how is what
Right.
we're saying being received? How are we being received as humans, right? And it goes back to, you know, your own personal brand. What do you stand for? Like, I do think that we all need to stand for something. Like, what's our purpose? Like, and you're like an exemplary example. Like, I don't think I can use those two
Oh
words
no, I
together.
want you.
You're
No,
like
no, you got to try to say that word again.
you're no, but the two words are, I'm saying the same thing. It's not
Yeah.
the right sentence. But the point is you're a perfect example of that, because you have a very clear purpose, and of what you want the world to be like. And you really have focused on the trade industry because you recognize like the importance of, I guess, humankind. Like, it sounds
Yeah.
like a very sort of big perspective, but the
It's
trade industry is
integrity.
it's integrity and such and dignity and such a huge part of our
Yeah.
world that we take for granted. And I'm very grateful for you, because you've definitely opened up my world in respect to the trade industry and perspective on it, and how we have to evolve in the way we're thinking. And you demonstrate it every single day. And so I'm very grateful for you, and thank you for doing this. This is really fun. I don't know where the last 45 minutes have gone. We just sort of, we could do this for another hour. But
Well, listen, if we're doing it for another hour, I need to go get alcoholic beverage. Yeah.
Well, we'll do that. We'll do a Zoom alcohol date.
Okay.
Anyway,
Awesome.
thank you, honey.
Okay.
Bye, sweetie. Bye.
Take care.